r/AskReddit by Redmond Dts. Former spoiled kids of Reddit, what was the moment that finally made you realize you were spoiled? Not me, but I went to a private school, and in my class we read a short story, can't remember what it was called, and it was about poverty. And my teacher says basically, no offense, but you guys kinda live in a bubble. And one kid says, word for word, I don't live in a bubble, my family summers in Italy. Using summer as a verb tells you everything you need to know about this kid, lol. Oh, I've told this story before, many years ago. For my 16th birthday, my parents gifted me a red convertible. But I legit threw a fit over it, because the car was red and not blue. They kept the car for themselves, and got me a new one. Just a small amount of context, to show how spoiled I was. Years later, I needed volunteer hours for various college applications, etc. There was an 8-week summer camp that was perfect. 8 weeks as a counselor, where I didn't really have to do anything. Sign me up. This summer camp was hosted by AmeriCorps. It served the underprivileged in my area for free, if the family couldn't afford it, or for something $25 a week if they could. There was this kid. Lovely little thing, but they refused to take off their shoes. Going to the pool for the day. They'd keep their shoes on. They were adamant about never taking off their shoes, almost competent about it. We knew something was wrong then. When there was a quiet nap time, I took the kid to the office of the person running the camp, and just sat down to talk to them. We talked about a lot of stuff, and then I was able to get them to open up about why they never took their shoes off. Their shoes were 3 sizes too small. They took off their shoes, and their socks were covered in old blood plus new blood. Their poor feet were wrecked from wearing these shoes for God knows how long. I grabbed a first aid kit, then cleaned up his wounds the best I could, and wrapped them in bandages. I threw his socks and shoes away. On my lunch hour, I sat in my car crying for what felt like hours. I got my shit together, went to a shoe store, and bought them 3 pairs of shoes in 3 different sizes. 1 pair that fit them now, and the other 2 as their feet grew. It was such a harrowing, humbling moment. A huge wake-up call. That camp taught me a lot, and I came away with a lot of stories much like that from many of the kids that attended the camp. I spent 2 years as an AmeriCorps, then joined their Vista program for another year. I started volunteering to work with at-risk kids. I became a big sister. I did everything I could to give back to my community. It's over 20 years later. I still volunteer and help whenever and however I can. When I look back on myself from that time, I can't believe how entitled and spoiled I acted and was. It was a life-changing experience. One that I will always be thankful for. Getting my first job and seeing how much effort it takes just to earn what I used to take for granted. Nothing humbles you faster than a tiny first paycheck. For a while, I didn't realize private school meant my grandparents would pay 30 grand a year for me to go to a fancy high school. Had no idea you had to pay for it. I just thought you had to be smart enough to get in, and then everything was free. I pretty quickly figured out this wasn't the case once I got to high school, made friends from other normal schools, and realized some of the dumbest people I've ever met went exclusively to private school their whole lives. Super embarrassing, I know. First time flying economy. I asked the flight attendant where the button was to make the seat recline all the way down. She just stared at me. My friend next to me whispered, that's not a thing in economy. I was 19 and genuinely didn't know planes had different classes of service. I thought business class was just a term for people traveling for work. The shame still haunts me. When I went to university, suddenly I realized that not everyone got their own car at 18 and went on vacations twice a year. Almost everyone had either taken out student loans or had to work part-time. It was a real eye-opener. Not me, but my boyfriend told me he had his first epiphany of how privileged he was when he had to write college application essays about something that he had to overcome in life, and he realized he's never struggled before. I had a deaf student one time that was struggling to come up with a hardship he'd overcome. I'm like, dude. But he really didn't see it as an issue. My parents weren't the richest, but when I got my first job out of state, my parents packed up my car with my stuff, helped me drive half across the country, helped me find an apartment, and got me settled in. Think of figuring out groceries locations, banking locations, various other stores, all when MapQuest reigned supreme and none of us had ever been there. I didn't think much of it at first, but that set me up for the rest of my life. Having loving, supportive parents is one of the greatest privileges that people take for granted. When I was like 8, my family had to wait in a long line for something. I don't remember what for. I loudly asked my parents, "Where is a line? This one is too long." Apparently I was so used to waiting in shorter VIP lines, or skipping them entirely. Luckily my parents realized what I was growing into, and stopped it, before I got any worse. When my grandparents gave me 40 grand to go to college every year for 3 years. Waiting for my son to figure this one out. Paid his tuition to Johnson & Wales for 4 years, only to have him not finish his degree. I'm tempted to go buy a bunch of prop movie money, invite him over for a barbecue, and toss the pile on the grill. On our family's trips growing, we always had a suite with single rooms, full kitchen and views. Or our own entire rooms. We never had to share sleeping areas. Freshman year of college, I went on a beach trip with a group of guys, and had to share rooms. I just acted normal, but this was a very foreign concept to me. I wasn't super spoiled, but certainly didn't grow up desperate. My friend brought over his tent that he got for his birthday, and my dog ruined it. He was very upset, and I didn't understand why. Your parents can just get you a new one, what's the big deal, was my thought. Then I went to his house shortly after, and for our lunch, we split one can of tuna fish and a lot of mayo on thin white bread between 6 people. That's when I realized why I had a super goose, and he had a 4th time handed down thrift store Huffy. Did your parents buy him a new tent? They did. And for a few years, my parents would always give me a little extra cash to make sure I bought a nice gift for him at birthdays and Christmas. It took me realizing that I have no survival instincts when it comes to money. I just spend like there will never be an issue. Until now, where there is an issue. It was when I asked a friend what his parents were getting him for his half birthday, and he just stared at me like I had 3 heads. That was the moment I realized that getting a $200 gift every 6 months just for existing wasn't a universal human experience. Not me, but my roommate. When I was 22, was informed by his parents that he had to start paying his own cell phone bill, which would be the only bill he paid. I'll never forget him coming home and sitting down at the table where I was having some cheap meal I could barely afford. He looked so dejected, so I asked what was going on. He sounded like Eeyore when he said, "My parents are making me pay my cell phone bill, I have to get a job." I broke my fingernail at a friend's bowling party. His dad went and grabbed fingernail clippers for me. I did not know how to use them because my parents had always cut my nails. I never had to participate in the console wars. I always had every system and game I ever wanted to play, along with peripherals and CRT monitor big screen setups, including brand new gaming PCs every couple of years. I was 19 and my card got declined at a gas station. Called my dad expecting him to fix it like he always did. He just said, "Yeah, that happens when you spend more than you have," and hung up. I sat in that parking lot for probably 10 minutes before I understood what just happened. As someone who married a spoiled child, just getting them to stop asking their parents for money is step 1 to every problem. Step 2 is stopping their parents from just handing it over. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening.